Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food systems storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network for 10 years. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
HRN is now on Kitsch, the first live streaming community for the food obsessed. Go to kittch.com and find HRN in the channel's listing.
Hey, welcome to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. I'm Jimmy Carbone, I'm the host, and I'm traveling up north of Boston in Massachusetts, and I'm looking for some of the great bottle shops and beer bars around the country, as we always have been. And this time I'm at RMA Craft Beer in Amesbury, Massachusetts. It's got a really great selection of craft beer and hard cider. And Aaron, the owner, had told me that one of their top-selling beers was a local brewery called Rockport Brewing. So we're here at a tasting in their store, and I'm here with some of the people from Rockport Brewing. So we're going to introduce our guests. So let's start with this gentleman.
I'm Ray Pickup from Rockport Brewing Company, and I'm the founder and brewer.
Great. And you, sir?
My name is Tyler Johnson. I'm a sales manager from Rockport Brewing Company on the North Shore.
Okay, we're getting warmed up. We did a couple of takes, and we're tasting through some of their beers. But, for me, it's like always there's breweries and there's tasting rooms, but there's nothing like finding a good bottle shop or a beer bar where you feel welcome and there's education and tasting experiences. So, Ray, for you, I noticed on your website that the retail locations in this area seem to be a really big part of your strategy.
Yes, so retail locations like RMA that Aaron runs is the lifeblood of the craft beer industry. Without the tastings, the interaction, and the buy-in from local retailers like Aaron, we wouldn't be on the map. With on-prem and off-prem sales, that's what drives us. Our product will only take us so far, but it's the community emotional investment that's put in, which, Aaron is a great partner.
So how'd you get started? I see pictures of you with a 5-gallon homebrew set up in your driveway.
So I moved north of the city probably 8 years ago now, and I needed a hobby. I didn't know anybody up where I moved. My wife's family's been there for hundreds of years. So I moved to a foreign land, even though it was only 40 miles north of where I grew up. So I needed a hobby. My wife was, ready to kick me out of the house because I was bothering her too much. So we started brewing 5-gallon batches in our driveway, and the rest is kind of history. Well, not history, but unwritten history yet, I guess you could say, because we have a long way to go. A lot to learn, a lot to brew, and hopefully a lot to sell.
All right, so Tyler, you're the sales rep. We are doing a tasting here, just like we would if there were customers. Tell me about the first beer that you tasted, because you're a legend around in these parts. Apparently, when Tyler comes in from Rockport Brewing to this retail location, they do their most business, and it looks like right now your beers are number 1 and number 2. So tell us about the relationship for you as a sales rep here, and then about the beer that we're tasting.
So when I first saw Rockport Beers, it was on my friend's Instagram page that he was managing a store down in Peabody, and I saw the Rockport Beers he was posting, and I was like, okay, I need to try those beers first of all, and second of all, I need to reach out to whoever is the owner of this company and get those beers in my store because I was currently managing a store myself. So I got my hands on some Hatchet. That was my first beer from them. It's a New England Session Pale Ale or IPA, and it's so light, it's so easy. It's just a summer crusher, and like the can art, everything behind the entire company, I was like, I need that in my store. So I reached out to Ray via Instagram. Ray came to the store, and it was instant. We hit it off, and his mission like aligned with my mission, and I kept working at the store, and kept pushing the Rockport beers, and once it was time for me to kind of end my retail, whatever you want to call it, I just I reached out, or Ray reached out to me for an order, and I was like, I don't work at the store anymore, but do you need help with the company? I'd love to help you out if you need anything. And so that's when it started, and I started being a sales manager for Rockport Brewing Company. And that's when he told me about the newest beer that we'd be brewing is the Italian Pilsner, the Pescato. Absolute crusher. This beer is delicious. It's the perfect beer. It's the perfect beer.
So, Tyler's being a little modest here. So Tyler, as I'm sure everyone listening can tell, he's an electric personality. So what he said is true, is how we first met and how we first started getting connected. And we just, we always had that connection. So when he became a free agent, so to speak, I jumped all over it. And I've always had it in my mind that if this kid becomes available, he's going to be working for Rockport Brewing Company. Like you said earlier, he's a local legend. He likes to go out at night. He likes to have a good time. But he's just that overall fun, happy-go-lucky guy that everyone wants to be around. And he's electric, so there's no disputing that with anyone. And it was an easy ask when I asked him to come on board.
So when you start, one thing I noticed in this part of Massachusetts, there's a lot of indie businesses. There's retail shops, there's bars, and there's a lot of small breweries. What was it like for you building up from, the 5-gallon test batch to what you have now?
Yeah, so our journey was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it wasn't difficult. I first started making beer as a hobby, and then that turned into competitions, winning competitions. And then the last competition that I entered was the first time that anyone won the People's Choice and also the judges. So that was the first time, and that's when that kind of solidified in my mind that, hey, let's kick the tires on this and let's see where it kind of goes. There's like you said earlier, there's a ton of great breweries in Massachusetts, specifically small ones, that really dial it in. Because when you get into the commercial game on large scale, you kind of lose that feel and that touch because you're more worried about trying to sell beer in the market rather than just kind of doing what you feel. And brewing beer is it's very similar to making food. There's cooking food and then there's cooking food, you either get the finesse or you don't. And I think that a lot of smaller breweries here in Massachusetts have the finesse where they elevate their brands, So I kind of took the playbook on what we did off of a few different ones. I've been in a homebrew club for years. We have some pro brewers in my homebrew club. So I was able to lean on them. And I'm just trying to take little pieces from everyone's business and craft it into our own model. So was it difficult starting? It was just a long road. It wasn't necessarily difficult, but if you stay adamant and you stay on top of things, you can get stuff done.
Here's another shout out to RMA Craft Beer, and Tyler will back me up. When I was in New York and the growth of craft beer in New York City, more and more people wanted the beers that were brewed in New York City. And when you go away, it's like I love Threes and I love Other Half. But when I'm up in Massachusetts, I want to find the local beers. And this is one store where I've really, because not every bar, not every restaurant, not every store really does support local. And here there's so many brands. There's Dorchester, Rockport, so many that I've never heard of. Tyler, why don't you give a shout out to a couple other Massachusetts breweries that people outside of the state might not know?
So a couple of my favorite local breweries, cheers, would be one right down the street. My buddy Stevie owns it. It's Bear Wolf Brewing Company right out of Amesbury, Massachusetts. They have just been, they've always keeping it funky, keeping it fun, keeping it weird, and we like that around here. Another one that's one of my favorites is Stellwagen Brewing Company out in Marshfields. They were slowly inching their way up north, and they've really made their presence known. So I'm really digging their stuff as well. Another One of my faves is Sylvaticus down the street as well, right in Amesbury. Super like very European style, like lagers and just weird stuff. Nothing nothing super hoppy, no hazies. They just do really fun stuff as well. But as far as that goes, those are my top 3 faves out of Rockport Brewing Company, like outside of Rockport Brewing Company.
No, that's great. I mean, like I said, coming to the store was eye opening. When I walk around and I'm like, I don't know any of these breweries. I want to learn more. So for you, this whole community up here, tell us about it. I think a couple weeks ago was Massachusetts Craft Beer Week too.
It was. So the beer community is very tight knit. No one looks at it as competition. It's mostly collaboration. I don't know how it is in other states. I can only speak about our area and our communities. But, without the people buying in emotionally into your brand, you're never going to be able to sell any beer if that's what you're into it. If you're into it to make money, great. If you're into it to make people happy and, be the life of a party or whatever it's going to be, it's all about community. It always has been and it always will be. If you don't have the backing of your peers that are around you, you're never going to be successful. So is it about the liquid? It is. Is it about the branding? It is. But it's solely about the community and how you kind of intertwine yourself, especially, Tyler grew up in this area. I didn't, so I had to work a little bit extra and make some special beer deliveries.
Well, that's a big part of it. Hey, and talk about your team. Your design and the can design stands out. So how important is that to your brand? Obviously, it's important, but who does it, and how did that become your brand identity?
Sure. So Rockport has always been known as a small seaside community that was known as like an artist colony. So we wanted to make sure that our brand as a whole, under the entire umbrella, really showcased artists from Rockport and, stuff that we believed in. So with our first beer that we put on the market, which was a Hatchet, my brother-in-law drew that design. I gave him the concept, but he drew it. Our second release was Twin Lights. Stefan Mears, a local Rockport artist who sells crazy amounts of oil paintings and everything else for astronomical amounts of money. He drew our second one, which is our Twin Lights. Our third one was our Macateers Dry Irish Stout, so that was my great-grandfather's World War I Army photo. Then we had our Will Cove. The artist actually fell through on the design, and when we were taking our son, or our daughter, it was our daughter, not our son, for her 1-week checkup after she was born, we saw it on the wall, and it was our pediatrician that made it. So my child's pediatrician did it for our Will Cove. He was the artist on that. Our Jetty Juice was just a picture that we took and manipulated. But all of our artwork is all local. Our Pescato that Tyler was talking about earlier, my aunt, who was right off the boat from Italy, she grew up there, and she came over here. She does mosaics on the side just for, shits and giggles, and, so she did the mosaic for our Pescato. So we try to keep it close. I'm very fortunate to have some very talented people in my family to put some stuff together, but also Rockport is an incredible community for artists. So we believe in local. We believe in lifting people up around us as they are helping to lift us up. So, the high tide raises all ships.
Oh, it's great in this area. So there's a lot of history. Rockport, Newburyport, these areas, a lot of history, small towns going way back. All right, Tyler, tell us about this next beer. Is this a white ale?
The Whale Cove, yeah. It's a white ale. Excuse me. Brewed with lemon peel, coriander, chamomile, super low ABV. What's that, 4.6? 4.9 on that one. It's the perfect crusher. It's citrusy but light. It's not overly sweet. It's just a really good beer to pair with any meal, on the boats, on the docks, on the beach, wherever you go. It's just an all around delicious beer.
Tyler, you're set up here at the back of the store, RMA Craft Beer in Amesbury, kind of ready for a tasting. So would you be tasting the customers the same way that you're tasting me right now?
No, honestly, I wouldn't. I would be up front at the front of the store, kind of like welcoming the customers as they come in, asking if they want to try some tasty brews. Honestly, if I was doing a tasting, I would be like, you want to try some free beers? And then I'd have them come up, because nobody can, refuse a free beer. As far as anything else goes, I would ask them what their style is, like what do they prefer, And then I would go from there, whether, they were into the IPAs, whether they like more lagers or pilsners, or if they like a stout, you never know who's going to walk through the door, and you never know what they're going to want, what do they want to expect. So you got to be open and flexible and kind of just, fluid.
So Ray, you're repouring this beer. Was there a reason where you're not? This is an issue sometimes with cans and how things are served. You just made a choice to open a second can of this.
I did. That one was looking a little thin. I don't know how old that one was out of the sample cooler, but I grabbed a fresher one. Sometimes the yeast settles out. A lot of hot matter, just the thicker stuff, and specifically wheat ales, settles out when it sits too long. So I guess I looked over and I saw they were looking a little thin. So I grabbed a fresh can that I brought with me, and just want the good representation.
No, this is an important part of your business. Again, like back to how do you build this brand up? I mean, you don't have a brewery right now, but you're putting all the things in place. So this quality control, is it really that you guys just have to be on top of every account and know what's moving?
Yeah, every single beer that goes out, if it doesn't pass our quality check, we go out and grab it. So we actually ran into a situation. So right now we're technically a contract brand. We don't have our own home, so to speak. So we brew at other local breweries. We give them the recipes. We give them very clear direction on how we want our beer to be. They package it. Last year, we were going through a little transition between one brewery to another, and the quality wasn't up to our standard. And to get technical on you, the parts per million as far as the dissolved oxygen in the packaged beer was a little higher than we expected, or we were even kind of told. So we had to go actually take beer back. We distributed almost 300 cases in 2 days. We had to go take it all back because we have a high standard. Because if something's on the shelf that we're not satisfied with or happy with, we're going to grab it. I know you saw me grab that. It's just, that's our philosophy with our brand. I never want to put anything out that we're not proud of. It's just,
I mean, I'm impressed, and you just lit up. You're like, I'm honest. I was tasting this one white ale, and just something was off about it. And you didn't say anything. And you went and got a fresh sample that you brought. And thanks for doing that. I mean, I remember like some guys like Anthony from Transmitter in New York came to my old bar, and for him the mix of the on the draft was off. Like it was too foamy, and he was upset because he cared. He went in the back. He played around a lot, and that'll happen a lot. The rep or the brewer comes to your establishment, will play around with your draft lines because not everyone knows exactly how to serve every beer, and it's hard. And with cans too, people think it's so easy, but there's definitely a shelf life, even if it's not listed on there.
there is, especially specifically with the wheat beer. The yeast has to be roused in it. So that might have been sitting there for a month. Gravity is something we can't stop. It's going to always pull that down. And, that happens with the IPAs or anything that's heavy on, flaked adjuncts or anything else that you want to add. You have to rouse the stuff, and that's why the IPA game is so quick to turn around. Everyone's like, 10 weeks old. Well, it's old. It's not really old. It's just it's thinning out a little bit because gravity's doing its thing. It's pulling all of that. Everything that was in suspension is now dropping to the bottom of the can. That's usually the little boogers that you see when you tip the can upside down that's falling out.
What's a booger?
A booger is a snot. But it's usually the little clumps of either yeast or, trube that's kind of left over that was in suspension when the beer was packaged. So every once in a while, I'm sure people that are listening kind of dealt with that, where some little thing falls out the bottom of the can when you tip it over and you shake it. That's just, it's nothing that's bad for you. It's something that was just in suspension that's no longer in suspension.
Yeah. So back to when you started. So tell us a little bit about the awards you won as a home brewer.
Sure. So I started entering. The first ever competition I entered was an out-of-state competition. It was right over the border in Maine, and I placed second with the first ever recipe I ever created on my own. So that gets you going a little bit. You're like, all right, well, when's the next one? When's the next one? So start grabbing awards. Not so much awards, but just recognition in the homebrew area. People in the club really started loving the beer, and then you start bringing your beer to festivals. There's a big one up in New Hampshire called the Homebrewers Jamboree. There's another one down the South Shore. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. I think they call it Warp Pours. It's down in Mansfield. That's another great one that you get, some serious recognition from these, where a lot of people that have started smaller breweries have gone through. It's almost like a rite of passage. So once you start doing well in competitions, you just see where it can go. And, we're still trying to figure out where we're going.
So let's move forward. And when I talked to you on the phone about a month ago, we were planning this out. You talked about the need for commercial space. You're looking to open a brewery. Tell us where you're at with that, and what are the challenges? I mean, this is in north of Boston, Massachusetts. It's tight. There's not like giant country fields, are there?
Not so much where I live in Rockport and where we want to be based out of. The hardest part is it's not really commercialized or industrialized, I should say. There is basically no commercial area. There's one area in Rockport on Bearskin Neck, but they're all small old fishing shacks, So as far as a production facility, we're probably not going to have it in Rockport. We still want to have a presence there moving forward. We think we may have something for next season after one of the restaurants. Hopefully they don't go out of business, but
so like a tap room.
Yep, a tap room in Rockport, but we have identified a spot in Gloucester. It's 20,000 square feet that we're going to start a production facility, have a tap room on site, a restaurant partner, but we still want to be in our community in Rockport. It's a commitment that I made. Obviously, I named my brand Rockport Brewing Company for a reason. I love the community I live in, and I wanted to be that hometown brewery. And so I still have a commitment with the town to do as much as we possibly can there, but within what's available. Specifically in here in Massachusetts, we've probably looked at 2 to 3 dozen properties trying to identify a spot, and they're not right for us, for our needs as a brewery, or they're just not the right property in general, too far off the beaten path. The sailings are too small. There's a million things that you're looking at that you don't really know until you kind of figure out what equipment you want, where you want to go, how big you want it to be. There's a lot of X factors in there where, I decided, could we fit stuff in the spaces we looked at? Yes, but I have an idea and a vision of where we want to be. I'd rather find a space to grow into than going into a space and then realizing, hey, we want to expand, but we don't have any space there. Now we got to start over again from scratch, which doesn't really, I don't want to do it again, going through it the first time.
And here, like just say, Mass, I remember from New York State, in a very short time, the rules, the laws changed in a really positive way, enable more breweries to open and have tasting rooms. Massachusetts seems to be really friendly to businesses and breweries, isn't it?
It is. It's extremely, but it also comes down, once again, to community. A lot of the brewers or owners of breweries that want to open know their politicians. They know the roles. They're part of their community. So is it easy? I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy. You got to be adamant. The paperwork has to be clean. There has to be very distinct things that have to be crossed off for you to be able to do this. So, it's easier than you think, but it's also harder than you think. I know I'm kind of giving you a vague answer on that, but if you know what you're doing, it's easy. If you don't, it's an extremely high hill to climb.
Yeah, and Tyler, so here at RMA Craft Beer, I'm just going back to, because this retail store is amazing. What do you call these stores again?
So this, I would categorize it as a Packey. I don't know about everyone here on the North Shore, but I'm from the city, so we call them Packeys in the city.
Packey, like a package store?
Yes, so that would be an abbreviation for a package store, yeah. Yeah.
So in this Packey, there's like so many beers. There's Belgian beers, there's Vermont, but there's also tons of Massachusetts beers. So there's a board here with the top sellers, and you guys are on it. So tell me the top sellers in this store right now.
So it looks like number 1 and number 2 are going to be Rockport Brewery beers, both IPAs. The first one's going to be our flagship, the Hatchet. The second one is going to be Jetty Juice, kind of a middle ground New England style IPA. Absolutely delicious. But as far as the other top ones, they're all local breweries. Bentwater Brewing, we got Mighty Squirrel Brewing, we got Winter Hill Brewery, Mayflower Brewing. These are all local breweries from Massachusetts. So it's clear to me that Amesbury supports local.
Wow. So this Cloud Candy, right?
It's Cloud Candy, yep. Mighty Squirrel Cloud Candy.
Mighty Squirrel. Wow. I keep learning a lot. But so why is your beer top? That's what I want to know.
I guess it's just really delicious. And, Aaron's a big supporter of us. We show up. That's the biggest thing. We show up and we support local ourselves. So I guess it's just karma coming around. we support local, the locals support us. It's, one hand feeds the other.
Now, this is a fun journey for me, just coming to a new place and finding a really solid retail Packey, and getting Aaron's feedback, and now getting to meet you guys. And Aaron said to me, "Listen, Jimmy, I want you to do a radio show with us, and why don't we do it with Rockport?" And he had explained to me who you guys were and everything. And you could go to. I feel like you could go to every state in the country right now, and there's going to be breweries you never heard of, and retail locations that you don't know. But once you find those key accounts, I mean, it's kind of like sales, right? I mean, I go to your website and I'm like, where do these guys sell? And I'm like, whoa, tell us the top locations in your area that you sell at. Give them shout outs, because obviously your beers are in the top Packies and retail stores in this area.
Oh yeah. So RMA is one of my top off-prem accounts, and one of my top accounts right now for on-prem is the Rusty Can in Byfield. They're like a small town barbecue joint, and honestly, they don't do any draft from us. They just do strictly cans from us, and they just usually they order every single week, and the locals love the beers.
They do order every week. That's a fantastic account. We have such a good base with all of our retailers. The guys that I brought onto the team, they have the experience with knowing how to speak to retail buyers, because they were them. Every single person on our team, I wouldn't say poached, but they're people that I got to meet while I was slinging the cases by myself, out of the back of the truck. Those were things that we had common ground, and we hit it off. And so, are we the top seller in each brand because of our liquid? Maybe. Is it because of, our sales reps? Maybe. There's a lot of maybes in there, but all I know is that, we're selling a lot of beer, which is great, and getting our story out and getting, the artwork out, and all the local people that support us, we're helping them raise their businesses just like they helped us raise our business.
Oh, so you're doing it old school way. You started out, you're making the beer, and then next step is your own brewery. Wow, this latest beer is really perking up my palate. What is it?
So you're drinking the first one that I have at the market for us. It's called Hatchet. So that was an ode. So Rockport was a dry town for 168 years. And it all started,
until you guys came?
Not until we came. It actually, 2008 was when it was no longer a dry town, but we didn't get our first liquor store until last summer.
Wait, let's start over. This is Massachusetts. People party here and drink. So you're telling me again, what happened in Rockport?
So back, it was actually before the Civil War. There was a woman called Hannah Jumper, was her name. She was just she was never married, no kids. She was just a woman that was in Rockport. It was still a village back then. And, Rockport was known for its fishing community. So the men used to go out, they used to fish for weeks on end, come home, spend all their money in the tavern. So Hannah Jumper got a bunch of her friends together. They were known as the Hatchet Gang. They went around, they busted up all the casks, dumped out everything, and then Rockport was a dry town for, like I said, 162 years. Sorry, not 168. So our first beer, it had to be an ode to her. So that's why we call it Hatchet, an ode to her as her Hatchet Gang. So if you look closely on the label, I actually put her name on it too. So it says Hannah right on the hilt of the hatchet, and that was an ode to her. It wasn't a jab in the eye. It was just recognizing what her and all of her people did, and moving forward. And then the story, we named it Rockport Brewing Company because Rockport has a deep, rich history of not only with the alcohol and it being a dry town, but just a rich history in general between the quarries and the artist colony and the ships and the fishing and you name it. So the story was already kind of built, and I wanted to identify with the community, getting everyone to emotionally invest into our brand. So that's why our branding and our artwork is very, very close to Rockport. Everything is all around it.
I did my research before this recording, and I know Massachusetts might have some bad rap about blue laws and founded by Puritans, but I looked at some old records of liquor licenses, and I found that in this area from this is Salem, Haverhill, Newburyport, these towns as early as like 1640s and 1650s were giving out liquor licenses. They called them ordinaires to one or sometimes two per town. That tells you that people were drinking. And I know there were Quakers here and things, and they still had some cider or mead. So there's a rich history here of drinking, isn't there?
They did. Well, you also got to remember that beer was a way to consume water when water was not potable. So that's why beer was here. And that's why the Pilgrim, so to speak, turned off in Plymouth and they didn't make it to Jamestown, is because they ran out of beer. That's a true story. That is a true story, yeah. So, and I can speak from family history. My family owned a tavern in Bedford that the Minutemen left from to go fight at the Battle of Lexington and Concord before the Revolution. That was the Fitch Tavern, and that's one part of my family that owned that. And it was a incredible experience to be able to go sit in that tavern. It's still intact. It's a part of someone's residence now, but they let me sit in there and reflect and kind of meditate a little bit before I got this project off the ground. And I actually thought about doing it in Bedford, starting a brewery in Bedford based off of my family history.
And another shout out to our friend Christine Sismondo, a beer writer. I don't know, 10 years ago, she wrote a book, America Walks Into a Bar. And for me, the highlight of that book was how democracy and independence was founded in taverns and pubs up here in Massachusetts and other places. Where was the first brewery in America? Was it in, let's say Northeast America, because we don't know about California or somewhere, but was it in Massachusetts or was it in New York?
I'm not sure where the actual first one. I know Yuengling kind of categorizes himself as the oldest operating brewery in the United States. But you got to remember that breweries really weren't a thing back in, the 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th century. They just weren't around here in the United States. They were more predominantly over in Germany, Czechoslovakia, whatever those areas were called back then, 300 years ago. I'm not a historian, so I don't know. But, they weren't really here. The strong ales and then the everything that we had here was to consume water. It wasn't necessarily, getting drunk was just kind of a byproduct of, getting the O2.
This is great. We're off to a great start with Rockport Brewing here at RMA Craft Beer, a great Packey retail store in Amesbury, Massachusetts, on the road. I'm Jimmy Carboni with Beer Sessions Radio. We'll be back in a few minutes on Heritage Radio Network.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network for 10 years. Roberta's was founded in Bushwick in 2008 and has become one of the most iconic restaurants in the country. HRN made its home inside of Roberta's in 2009, and together they have become part of the DIY fabric of the neighborhood. Roberta's, the pizza restaurant, is open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week and serves much more than just the famous wood-fired pizzas. Their team dreams up new salads, pastas, and sandwiches on the regular. Roberta's Tiki Bar is alive and well in the back garden, serving up frozen drinks in the summer and hot toddies in the winter. Stop by the bakery and takeout spot next door for fresh breads, sticky buns, and pizzas to go. And of course, there's the 2 Michelin-starred Blanca tucked away in the garden for truly daring diners. But Roberta's also extends beyond Bushwick, with multiple locations in New York City and now in Los Angeles. You can also find their frozen pies in grocery stores around the country. The spirit of Roberta's, like Heritage Radio Network, is everywhere. Here's to many more years of pizza-powered radio. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
HRN is excited to announce that we've launched our channel on Kitch, the new food-centric live streaming video platform for interviews, cooking classes, and more. In April, in collaboration with Kitch and the Mushroom Council, we're celebrating Earth Month with delicious, nutritious, and sustainable mushroom recipes. Check out the latest videos on our channel to see Eat Your Heartland Out host Capri Cafaro, Jupiter's Almanac host Matthew Rayford, and Item 13 host Yoram Aku Aku moderate recipe demos with chefs Jeremy Fox and Ali Rosen. Join us at kittch.com to become part of the first live streaming community for the food obsessed.
Hey, welcome back to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. I'm on location in Amesbury, Massachusetts at a great Packey retail store talking about beer history and with the guys from Rockport Brewing. And hey, become a member, support us at heritageradionetwork.org. So Ray, we're talking beer history. So Fitch Tavern, Bedford, family lore. Let's talk. Massachusetts has a lot of history. So I mentioned, I think in this town, my hometown was Haverhill, Mass. There was an ordinaire license issued in 1651. So tell us about Bedford and this Fitch.
So the Fitch Tavern, the Fitch family, they were an integral part of the Revolution and where the idea came with the militia. That is my father's side of the family. My mother's side of the family is predominantly 20th century immigrants from Ireland, England, Scotland. But the Fitch family is huge in that area. Every gravestone is either a Fitch or a Bacon, and that's in my family blood. But that location that I was able to go see, the Fitch Tavern, was just incredible to kind of just sit there and feel and reflect on, where you want to go, where you are, and the direction that you want to go. So it was great being there. It was great seeing it. I wish it was still open to the public because I wish they would carry our product. That would be incredible. But hopefully one day we can do an event there to really circle back and do a full life circle, so to speak.
So let's talk history. What are some other old establishments? I know in New York we have McSorley's. Are there any other places that you can note up here? I mentioned these ordinaires from. Why not talk history, right? I mean, we're up here in Mass. Ordinaires from 1640s, 1650s. Any other anecdotes about the history of drinking or taverns in this area? Hand up if you got an answer. This is the live tasting now, kids. Come on.
So in Boston, you have the Union Oyster House, which is pretty damn old. You get the Bell in Hand, which is pretty old. In my hometown of South Boston, we have Amorine's, which has been around since late 19th century. So there's rich history. Some of the taverns that have been really old, they just, they've fallen apart, been rebuilt, repurposed, whatever the situation's been. I don't know if too many, like I said, I'm not from the North Shore, so I don't know a lot of North Shore history on taverns and pubs and all that. I'd have to imagine there is some. I'm just not too familiar with it.
Yeah, my friend Chris O'Leary, who writes Brew York, New York, this past year he's been talking about trying to put the spotlight back on good beer bars and taverns, and in this case, retail locations. And I like that so basically you need these retail locations, Rusty Can and RMA. That's how you're selling your beer. So why was that your strategy? Everyone else the last 5 years has been, we're going to open a tap room and just sell beer, our pints at full price. Why did you go this strategy? Because this is what people were doing like 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah, so we did it completely ass backwards. The pandemic kind of dictated the way that we were going to go. And, when we first came up with the idea of actually trying our beer on the commercial market, we were supposed to brew the week after the state shut down here in Massachusetts. We were supposed to literally brew in March of 2020. So we had to scrap that plan with our brewing partner and wait until June of 2020. And then we did a small batch. We did a 15-barrel batch just to see how it went, making sure it was going to be all right. Caught on fire. We sold out of that entire batch in like 3 days, which was incredible. I think, we only yielded maybe 110 cases, which seemed like a lot, but we were starting from scratch. We didn't have any partners in the industry yet. But places, establishments like RMA and all the people that we've been able to meet along our journey, and it hasn't even been that long. It really hasn't. It'll be 2 years in June. And the amount of people that we've just been able to connect with, without them, we wouldn't be selling beer. Because of the pandemic affected that from the get-go, where we couldn't even get into a space if we wanted to. Never mind getting materials, equipment on that scale. I wasn't about to start a commercial brewery with a 1-barrel setup like I have now in my garage. It wouldn't have been cost-effective to do so. You would lose your shirt doing that, trying to get it out. So the pandemic, the short answer is the pandemic is the reason we kind of did it backwards, the way that a lot of the big boys now, that you consider big boys today, Sam Adams is one of them, or Boston Beer Company. They started that way. Jim started that way, hustling beer out the back of his car. Same thing up in Portland, Maine. Another big one is Bissell Brothers up that way. They were selling, out of the back of their car and off their backs. That's the way that and people gravitate towards that hustle. They see you hustling and selling one case at a time. I never put minimums on everything. I never said, listen, I can't get you this or I can't get you that. If someone was like, hey, I'm out of beer, could you get it to me tonight? I'll be driving up there with the case, so it's infectious. And that's honestly the way that I was raised. It's just, if you want something, get it done. Go get it.
Oh, that's a great attitude. I remember, like, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, we talked about contract brewing, and there was mixed feelings about it. But then we saw like Two Roads in Connecticut really built the facilities to help all these really small breweries grow, like even Lawson's Finest and some other friends. So that it's really been an important part of their business. So you said there's where you're looking. It's hard to find some commercial locations that could work for you as a brewery. So are you having trouble finding places to brew, or did you? How hard was it to find that brewing location?
So you're talking about as far as like a contract? Yeah. So when we first started contract brewing, there's only a few breweries in Massachusetts that will take on contract brands. So you were kind of limited in that pool. We were lucky to hook up with our first partner. We have since moved on. We had, slight disagreements. It's fine. It was in the best interest of their business. It's in the best interest of our business. So it was a mutual parting. We're still friends, and none of that was soured. We moved on to another one. It was just a volume game at that point, where we were kind of maxed out at the capacity that we could brew at our first partner, and we moved on to another partner that can kind of handle the volume we're looking at. Right now, I believe after the first week of May, we're brewing every week, or we're packaging every week, all the way through until September. So we don't really have a break in between, and we're not doing small batches. We're doing 60-barrel batches. So we're moving a good amount of volume through that, and then obviously beer gardens and festivals and events that are popping up. So we had to up our game, because when you're in the beer industry or any spirits industry, whatever it is, any sort of commodity, it's a volume game. So the more you can brew, the smaller our margin, or the better our margins get. The smaller our cost is because of the larger batches. Everything's going up in cost, so you kind of have to roll with the punches. We rounded out our team by adding some more, sales managers and, talent to our team to be able to grow our brand organically. We're not trying to force feed it down people's throats. Try our liquid, give it a shot. You like it, put it on. Let's see how it goes. There's no minimums on orders, so if it doesn't do well on the first case or the first log or half barrel, then, we get it. You got to be realistic about this stuff too. We're not one of the big boys that's like, hey, you have to take our stuff because we're local. We're not that way. We want to let our liquid and our overall attitude kind of dictate our sales.
So sales, you're talking old school. You're talking about pouring and tasting your liquid with the public, whether it's festivals. And sometimes you go to Whole Foods or these kind of bigger supermarkets, and they've got someone tasting the latest snack food. But when you taste that stuff, you buy it, And I never would buy a beer unless I got to taste it. So how important is Tyler to that?
So Tyler's huge. Like I said earlier, his personality is electric, but he also believes in the brand. He believes in our liquid, and that's something that you can't teach. It's something that you can't bang something over someone's head about. It's either you're into it or you're not, and Tyler's into it. Not just with our brand, but just craft beer in general. He's into the whole market. He's into the scene. It's a lifestyle, honestly, when you really look at hopheads and everyone else. They're not really cookie cutter, but if you're into it, you're into it. And Tyler has that electric personality that he is 100% into it.
So Tyler, I walk into the store. What's the line that you hook me with so I'll try your beer?
I'll say, hey, do you want to try some free beer?
You gotta say that again, one more time.
I'll say, hey, do you want to try some free beer?
And so I'll try this one. What is it?
So I would be like, oh man, if you like some hazy New England style IPAs, I got this one right here for you, bro. It's Jetty Juice. It's the perfect beer. It doesn't stick on your palate. It's tropical, stone fruits, citrus medley. It's just phenomenal. At that point, it's like, oh, just please give me some, man. And so I pour him on a sample. I say, here you go, bro. And I'll say, here you go. And then I'll be like, I'll pour one for myself too. Cheers. And then we both sip it and we lock eyes. And that's when we both know this beer is delicious. And he's like, where's it at? And I show him, and then I'll say, follow me, man. Follow me to the cooler. Open the cooler door. I grab the 4-pack. From my hand to his, it's just at that point, he's locked into the brand because the beer is delicious. He knows that I love it. And it's like, we're together in this moment. And, we just confide in each other over brews.
So how do you describe yourself? Are you a beer sensei?
Some would say that, yeah. Some would say that. I've been known to be called Thai Lord of Brews. So it's like, and I've ran liquor stores. I've managed beer for years, and a lot of times people, after they get to know me, and I recommend, not even just one brand. I'll throw out a couple brands, and they'll taste it, they'll love it, and then they come back and they say, what do you recommend? And at that point, they don't even ask any questions. It's just like, what do you, it's just like, oh, you like this beer? I'm going to buy this beer. Because they trust me, because I'm not going to lie to them. I'm like, I'm not playing a game where it's like, oh, it's about sales, it's about money, it's about this. It's like, no, this is the beer that you want to try because it's quality product. It's delicious. And like, that's what I'm all about. There's no games when it comes to beer.
No, you're a pro. And it's I just love that, people build their careers around this industry because it's really a great one. Ray, for you got a secret day job. You're wearing a Rockport Brewing outfit, but you actually have a serious job. And I think I know some people that are part of what you do.
You do. So I am a business representative for the IUPAT, which is the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. I'm a specific trade. I'm a glazer by trade. So before I was in the office, before I was helping my guys and gals in my local go to work and creating work opportunities and representing working families, I used to hang off the side of high rises and installing curtain wall. So I've come from a rich history of union activists and union families. I'm a fourth generation. And so this was so McAteer's, our dryer stout, that was the first generation union member right there. Owen McAteer, he was a elevator constructor here in Boston, local 4. Unfortunately, he died on the job. He was crushed by an elevator down the seaport here in Boston back when my grandmother was less than a year old. So I never got to meet him, but an incredible man, incredible story, life history. But, so I am a union guy through and through. There's no doubt about that.
Here, give us some more just shout outs, or I don't know, what's the term? Not obituary, but, good things to say about some of these other union guys, because I know I've seen you reference them.
Yeah, so the union is sometimes it's a scary word to some people. When I hear union, I hear collective bargaining agreement, I hear safe working conditions, I hear working families, and I hear retirement, and not so much security. Like some unions, our guys and gals, they're basically employees at will. If they're not good at their job, they usually don't hold the job too long, but we do a great job of training our members. So, I'm fortunate enough that it's not really a day job because I don't turn it off. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I also do the brewery stuff at night. But I'm fortunate enough where I have a great team around me that really does a lot of the legwork. I just kind of sign off on the stuff at this point. It was a lot of legwork at the beginning when I was doing it by myself, pulling basically double duty. I'd be going from a contract ratification vote to then slinging beer at 7 o'clock at night. So like I said earlier, the hustle's in me. My dedication is definitely there for the members that I represent. My district council, we represent glazers, commercial painters, bridge painters, residential painters, drywall finishers, the Boston custodians. So we represent in total about 4,600 members, primarily in Massachusetts, but technically all in New England, but mostly in Massachusetts. So I think that has also given me a good business sense as well. Having exposure to that. I've always been driven since I was probably about 20 years old to get to that spot. I was first put on as an organizer, so I got to know and really hone in my people skills talking to open shop workers, people that weren't represented, and helping explain to them.
First, I'm going to take a step back because my buddy Dave Infante, who's Fingers, he's talking a lot more about unions as a beer and drinks writer, and our good buddy in England, Pete Brown, you got to read his new book. It's coming out, Clubland. It's about working men's clubs in England, but this is about workers and workers in unions, and there is a tie together. And I think that all the things that have happened in craft beer and other industries and the need for human resources, it was Pete Brown who said to me last summer, he says, no, dude, it's the unions. Unions have that role, and even when the baseball players were on strike, even though it was big owners and and well-paid baseball players, they were still in it as workers. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So specifically with the Major League Baseball strike, everyone thinks that, professional athletes make all this money and the owners don't make anything. It's actually the opposite. Most of the owners are completely greedy. And the money that the players get, the big bucks only go to the top 1% of the players. You'll have a Major League Baseball player that's been in the league for 10 years. They'll still take him to arbitration over a $300,000 contract. So a lot of that money is dictated. They obviously have a different deal than other unions and other, bargaining units, but theirs is basically dictated by like revenue through like ads and TV deals. Same thing with the NBA, the NFL. So when you see a player making $30 million a year, it's because he is the top 1% of that. But what about the other 99%? It's about raising up all workers. Those teams don't win championships with one player. It's a team sport for a reason. So I think that dispute, without getting too deep into it, was about raising the wages and, the effectiveness of the contracts for quote unquote the lower tier players and not just, the best of the best. So when it comes down to unions, we represent workers, and it's not even about strangling people or any of that stuff. It's about safe working conditions. It's about health care. It's about, a livable wage. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. And that's what the unions bring. And that's why we've seen a massive influx, and that's why we have the labor secretary of the United States now, Martin J. Walsh, who I may have met once or twice in my lifetime.
Wait, tell us about this guy. Wasn't he the mayor of Boston?
He was. So Martin J. Walsh was the mayor of Boston. Before that, he was actually the president of the Boston Building Trades. So I've been fortunate enough to know Marty since I was about 14 years old. He grew up in the neighborhood next to me. He was originally from Dorchester, still lives there, and I grew up in South Boston. So my congressman, who I knew very well growing up, he was a friend of my grandmother's. Joe Moakley actually introduced me to Marty Walsh when I was 14 years old up at the State House. So I've known Marty for a while. I'm sure everyone listening knows who he is from watching him on TV. And, he's putting unions back on the map. You have President Biden speaking about unions and Amazon unionizing, Starbucks unionizing, which is incredible. It's not even about getting one over on the owner. It's about creating a fair playing field for the workers.
And just to digress, because we can drink beer at union meetings, right?
It's actually against the rules. You cannot drink beer at union meetings unless it's a cookout or a barbecue.
So afterwards, we're not at a union meeting, but this is interesting. We will be doing a show about this in May with Pete Brown and his work in men's clubs. Maybe you'll come on with us, Ray, but that's pretty great. And I want to throw this out. I don't need to talk politics, but perhaps the answer, whether you want to tax billionaires or whatever, is that maybe it's just having more unions like we used to. When I was a kid, my dad was in Communications Workers of America, and I know he worked hard, but at least he had vacations and health care, and he didn't really worry about his job, but he worked really hard.
Yep. And that's what it comes down to is most folks in a union realize that. You have some people that will call them freeloaders or whatever it is. You can't get fired because of the contract. That isn't true. There's always ways. There always has to be an agreement between management and the union and the members that we represent. So at the end of the day, what does that mean for Rockport Brewing Company? I am hoping to be the first fully affiliated union brewery in the United States. There are other breweries, mostly the big boys, the major conglomerates, AB InBev, Miller Coors. They are signed on with the Teamster for their truck drivers and also their warehouse workers. But the brewers, front of house, sales staff, you name it, none of them have proper representation in the workplace. So, hopefully there is I wouldn't call it a reckoning, but just a wake-up call that, the United States is becoming completely lopsided as far as wealth. And
this is a great segue. Just shout out to Gerard Fagenberg, beer writer, and Dave Infante. I know you're listening. We're going to be doing the show in May with Pete Brown. We're going to talk more about this, and maybe Ray will join us. So now back to sales, the working guys. Tyler, what's his next beer? It's dark. It looks beautiful.
It is dark, it is beautiful, and it is delicious. It's the McAteers Dry Irish Stout. This one, my main selling point.
Wait, this is the guy that was crushed in an elevator.
He was, yep. So this is my great-grandfather, World War I veteran, immigrant from Ireland to the United States. He actually joined the Army before he was even a citizen because he loved his country. And, So he was once he was done in World War One, he was over in France. He got hurt. I don't know if he got shot or stabbed. It wasn't too explicit on what happened to him, but he came home injured, joined Local 4 Elevator Constructors Union here in Boston. He was a member for about 12 years before he was ultimately killed on the job.
So you might say that unions are an important part of America.
Yes, in my opinion, as far as workplace safety, which is first and foremost, because what good is a job if you're risking your life every single day you got to go? That's first and foremost. Businesses look at it as a hindrance, but it's proven, and I've seen it in my own eyes, by having stringent safety regulations actually increases production rather than decreases production on no matter what it is, whether it's manufacturing, construction, whatever the situation is. Safe working conditions will always create more production. And that's what it comes down to, and hopefully there's a coming back, because we lost a lot of unions. Sometimes it was just jobs went overseas because, a deal was signed in the mid-90s to then start shipping manufacturing jobs specifically overseas for a cheaper price. That's why a lot of the unions went away, especially the auto industry in Detroit, in Michigan, where they needed a bailout, because their pensions were failing because there were more people drawing on the pension than putting in. And then, certain people use that as a knife, so to speak, to kind of drive the division. And sometimes it's not even about the work, and sometimes it's situations that you can't control on why some unions survived and ones didn't, bargaining units. There's a million reasons why they're not around. But in my opinion, it needs to come back around, because it will level the playing fields with, wealth inequality in this country. And I know I'm probably getting on a little bit of a soapbox right now, but it's true.
Well, I guess that the whole point is letting people know that unions are what we're all looking for, because it helps create a working middle class. Now, Dark and Beautiful, tell us about it.
Dark and Beautiful and Delicious. So
It's my new album.
I hope I'm on that track. So this is the Macketeers Dry Irish Stout. Usually my main selling point for this one is, it's right on par with Guinness, except there's more body, more flavor, and the same low ABV that we all know and love, just so you can throw a couple back and you're not going to be wobbling out of the bar at the end of the day. This is one of my go-tos, in the colder months. It's a no-brainer. You can throw it in, you can make a meal out of it. 4.3 on this one.
For what, the ABV?
For the ABV on this one, yeah. So it's nice and low on that. So it's right on par with Guinness, but like I said, more body, more flavor, same crushability, and obviously it's more local. It's small batch compared to what Guinness is putting out. So this is one of my go-tos, and you can throw it in a pot roast. You can add it to your meals. You can throw it in the slow cooker. It's got versatility. So
Cooking with beer, I love that. So back to Ray, the beer. So this is a dry Irish stout. It's in a can.
Yep.
So what was the challenges of making a dry Irish stout in a can? We know that with the Guinness style beers, there's that little sparkler and this nitro pour. It's like a different kind of beer. I personally love like a real cask ale, and I know that that's what that's trying to mimic. So what were your goals putting in a can, and the carbonation levels and everything? Let's get technical on this one.
So on the technical, it's just the same. We do the 2.3 per vol. So it's not overly carbonated. It's all CO2. We don't use any nitro in it, even though we have put it on nitro before, and it's absolutely delicious. The nitro just gives it, to break it down, smaller bubbles. So you really don't get those big bubbles that kind of hit you in the nose a little bit, like some of the beers that have overcarbonated. With this one specifically, I wanted to make it a little bit more local than Guinness, so I switched up a few of the ingredients. There aren't too many ingredients in dry Irish stouts in general. So we just switched a couple of those up to my flavor palette. This is one of the first recipes that I kind of did. It's very simple. It's a simple, very simple recipe. So, is it good? 100%. Is it easy to make? It actually is. Anyone can make beer. It's just all about the equipment, and cleanliness, honestly, at the end of the day. But with this beer in particular, I was looking for something a little bit darker that, I first started making IPAs and everything else that everyone wanted to drink. And I'm like, I like dry Irish stout. I like Guinness. I want to make something that isn't Guinness, similar, but it isn't the same thing. And that's how we kind of came up with a recipe creation on this one.
A big part of this year is that everybody homebrews, separate from the need for unions, but everybody homebrews. And did you ever make a stout or a dark beer recipe as a homebrewer? And if so, what was it?
It's the one you're drinking. All these recipes were homebrew recipes. So like we touched on earlier, I started making 5-gallon batches in my driveway, and just, you have the ability to dump it if you need to, and kind of tweak it and go as you can with making 5 gallons. 5 gallons isn't that much, and it's a lot less time than doing even a 14-gallon batch, or then a 20-gallon batch, or a 1-barrel batch, where you kind of elevate it, where you become a little bit more picky on the things that you want to kind of experiment with. And with this one, it was, I think I only did like 2 or 3 iterations of this one before I kind of settled on it. Like I said, it's a simple recipe that you just tweak it here or there as far as the volume amounts of the grain that you're using, or how long you want to let it sit for, to ferment out. And if you're going to even dry hop it, I don't dry hop this one, but, I did play around with it a little bit. There's a lot of different technical things that you could do to tweak it just that little bit, where it's like, all right, you notice a difference. But this one's very simple. This one's simple. This is the homebrew recipe that I used to do.
Well, it's great, guys. I really enjoyed talking to you and tasting with you. So again, thanks to Tyler and Ray of Rockport Brewing. We're here at RMA Craft Beer Shop, which was formerly a Craft Beer Cellars, right?
Yep.
So this is a lot of tradition in this town, Amesbury, Massachusetts, north of Boston, kind of near New Hampshire. And we got to discover it and be welcomed by Aaron, the owner, and his family. And I don't know, excuse me, I don't know what else to say. I'm just happy that we did this. And it's great getting to know all these small breweries in Massachusetts. There's a lot of potential here. Things are really great. So when you come up to visit Newburyport, Rockport, you come to Boston, just come up here too. So thanks so much, guys. Thanks to Armada Engineers going to clean this up. I'm Jimmy Carboni. I'm the host. We'll catch you next time on Beer Sessions Radio. All right. Woo!
Beer Sessions Radio is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows you like. Tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.